Today I'm going to rank every Red Dead Redemption 2 character from the least racist to the most racist. This video is just made for fun, and it's more to poke fun at how overly racist some of these Red Dead Redemption 2 characters are. 95% of my viewers are unsubscribed, so if you'd like to see more funny tier lists like these, please subscribe. In last place, it has to be Brothers Dorkins. This guy freed some people from neo-slavery and is just an overall good person. He doesn't care what color, what race you are. He will always try and help people. And I feel like that's why Brother Dorkins has to be one of the nicest characters in the entire game. He's a white dude, but it clearly seems like he's fine with any race, and he's just down to help people no matter what, social class they're in. I mean, of course he wants to help poor people more, but he just wants to help people in general, and that means he's one of the best characters in the entire game and just one of the least racist characters in the entire game, so he has to go in F tier. In 36th place, I've got Captain Monroe. Captain Monroe really fights back against the racism of Colonel Favours. It seems like Colonel Favours is really just hating on Native Americans because they kind of ruined his career, and he just doesn't like Captain Monroe in general. And Captain Monroe really fights back against that, and he wants to show everyone about the real plight that the Native Americans are in, but he can't really do that because Colonel Favours is just absolutely railroading him. So I think Captain Monroe is one of the nicest guys in the game and definitely is not racist. He's definitely anti-racist because he's trying to help the Native Americans out of their plight and just getting them out of their situation that they're in. In 35th place, I've got Charles Smith. Charles Smith cannot be racist at all. He's first off mixed between Native Americans and African Americans, and just overall in general, Charles Smith, likes everyone in the camp. He doesn't really have any prejudices against anyone. Even when they're discriminating against him, it seems like he's fine with anyone. He doesn't really care what race you are, what color you are. He does fight back also against a lot of the racism. So I feel like that also has to put him, down there. He always fights back against Micah or Bill whenever they're saying something out of pocket. So he definitely has to be the least racist character in the entire game. And while he doesn't, totally fight against it as much as someone like Colonel Favours or Brother Dorkins do, where they actually do something to try and change that racism, he does fight back against it. So he also has to be in the F tier. In 34th place, about Lenny Summers, basically pretty similar to Charles. He sees the racism and he kind of fights back against it. I mean, he doesn't really do much in Lemoyne when they're actually there, but he tries to tell Arthur about it and kind of educate Arthur about it, and especially when he's actually the one facing a lot of the racism. Of course, he can't really be racist. I mean, he can, of course, but he doesn't really seem to have any prejudices against the white people in the game, and it seems like he tries to help other people understand his situation and understand the racism he has to go through. So he definitely has to go in F tier as well. He's definitely not a racist character by any means. In 33rd place, about Hosea Matthews, basically similar to a lot of these other characters. He doesn't really seem to have any prejudices against any groups, and it seems like he's actually very friendly with people like Lenny and Charles, just because they have a similar moral code to him, especially Lenny. It seems like he and Lenny were really good friends before they both died, basically in the same mission, where, Lenny and him both kind of bonded over reading, and Hosea really wanted Lenny to get out of the gang and try and do something with his actual education, which of course he didn't get to do, but it seems like he wanted just people to do their best no matter what race they were. It didn't seem like he had any significant prejudices, so he has to be one of the least racist characters in the entire game. In 32nd place, about Javier Escuella. Javier, again, really can't be that racist, especially when he's going through a lot of racism. It doesn't seem like he's really fighting back against it, but it also doesn't really seem like he's trying to educate anyone about his racism. I mean, it seems like there's a lot less racism against him versus someone like Lenny or Charles, but it still seems like there is a lot of racism against Mexican immigrants like him. So, he definitely is getting racially profiled and all that, and he is fighting back against it sort of, but not really that much. Still, he's not really racist at all. He really likes all the members in the gang, and he takes a lot of their beatings just because they're white and he's not. So he's definitely not a racist member of the gang by any means, and he has to go in F tier as well because he's not racist at all. In 31st place, I have to put Pearson. Pearson seems like he kind of just does whatever, and he doesn't really care about anything the gang does. He kind of just is over doing his own thing. So I definitely don't think he's racist at all. And it seems like he's definitely anti-racist. He's just serving food to anyone, no matter what color they are, no matter just who they are. He just wants to make food and do his own thing. He's really just off on the gang on his own tangent. And, it definitely doesn't seem like there's any sort of way that he could be racist, except maybe for him being the general store owner in Rhodes. But Rhodes is a pretty mixed place. So I don't know. I definitely don't think Pearson's racist at all. And I think he has to go into F tier as well. In 30th place, I've got Tilly. Again, similar to all these other people, she doesn't really take as much racism from other people just because she's not really going out. And in Dutch's gang, there's not really that much racism. Like maybe from someone like Micah or Bill, there might be some racism thrown towards her. But in general, she doesn't get as much just because she's a woman versus they're men. And, I think she's not really racist at all. She doesn't really do much to, of course, change the racism, but she's not racist at all. She has a bunch of white friends. She kind of interacts with a lot of people in the gang, and just overall, she's a great character and clearly not racist at all, so she has to go into F tier as well. In 29th place, about Trelawny. Trelawny clearly isn't racist. I mean, it just seems like he's off doing his own thing. He doesn't really care about anyone else besides himself. Like, that's kind of how he just rolls, and himself and his family. And he doesn't really care about who he interacts with. Like, he's always interacting with Javier, especially in the fine night of debauchery. And it just seems like he doesn't really care about the races. He just doesn't really see color in general. He's just off doing his own thing. But of course, maybe he is racist somehow, or like there could be a lot of other things going on with Trelawny, but I definitely don't think he is racist. And, he's just off doing his own thing. He's not preoccupied with it. So he definitely has to go into D tier. In 28th place, about Uncle. Again, similar to Trelawny, he's just kind of in his own world, and I feel like doesn't really care about race. He doesn't really see race or anything like that. And he just being himself. He's just, feeling the lumbago, chilling. He's being really lazy, and, he doesn't really care about anyone else's race. He'll work with people that will help him, and he won't work with people that won't help him. Like, it's simple as that. He doesn't really, see through race, and he just kind of, works with people he likes. He doesn't really care about race, and there's not anything racist going on with Uncle, but, maybe there's a sinister past for Red Harlow / Uncle, but, we'll never know. So I don't think Uncle's racist at all. He just doesn't seem concerned with anything like that. And he definitely is just a super nice guy, especially to people like Charles and Javier at points. So I don't know. I definitely don't think he's racist at all. So he goes in D tier. In 27th place, I've got Molly O'Shea. Basically this similar to Uncle and Trelawny. She's just off in her own world. She only cares about Dutch. And I feel like she's just equally resentful to everyone else besides Dutch. So I definitely don't think she's racist at all. I mean, she's just kind of doing her own thing. She just doesn't care about anyone else. So I'd say similar to these other two, she could be racist. There could be a little mean streak. That's why she's with Dutch. But I don't think she's racist at all. So she definitely goes in D tier as well. In 26th place, about Mary-Beth. She's good friends with Tilly. She doesn't seem like to have any racist things. I just feel like in general she's like a really nice person. So there's no really reason for her ever to be racist, but you never know. There always could be something going down. I don't know. I don't think she's racist at all, and I think because she's good friends with Tilly and with a lot of these other people, I just think she's a really nice person and could not really ever have that, racist streak. So she definitely also has to go in D tier unless there's something else going on with her. In 25th place, it's Karen. Similar to Mary-Beth, she just doesn't seem racist. She's friends with Tilly. She has all these other things going on. I just think she's a pretty nice person, except when she's a drunk, because she's a very mean drunk. But, I mean, she's still friends with Tilly and all these other people, and I don't really think there's any racist characteristics going on with Karen. So, again, I think she has to go in D tier as well. In 24th place, about Reverend Swanson. I don't think he's racist at all. He's kind of in his own world for most of the game, and then he eventually, cleans up his act, does all these other things, moved to New York, which is a very diverse place. So I don't think, going off being a racist in New York where you're a pastor is the greatest idea. So I definitely don't think he's racist at all. And, it just seems like he's a really good person, eventually turns into a really good person. So he definitely also has to go into D tier. I don't think there's any racist qualities going on with Reverend Swanson. In 23rd place, about Kieran Duffy. Again, similar to a lot of these other characters, he's just kind of nice to everyone. Doesn't seem like he has anything going on, and he just wants a place to call home, and he doesn't really care who it's with. He doesn't care if there's, Mexican people, black people, white people. He just wants a place where he can exist and not be hunted down by the O'Driscolls. So he's definitely not a racist character at all, and I don't really think there's anything racist going on with Kieran. So I think he also has to go into D tier. In 22nd place, I've got Sadie Adler. Similar to a lot of these other people, there's not really any racist characteristics going on. She is friends with Charles. She does have a lot of these other things, but there's not anything, poking out to me that would be like, oh, she low-key has a racist undertones or anything like that. I just think she likes anyone, and as long as they help her do her bidding with like the O'Driscolls and whatever, I think she's going to work with anyone. So it really is just like who can help her do all these things, similar to a lot of these other cowboys where it's just like a diverse group of people wanting to help each other. And I definitely think she has to go in D tier as well, just because she's willing to work with anyone. In 21st place, I've got Arthur Morgan. Again, similar to a lot of these other characters, he's a white guy, but, he seems like he's willing to work with anyone. Seems like he's really good friends with Charles, who's a black and African-American man. And he's also good friends with Lenny, an African-American. And, it doesn't seem like he has any problems with Javier. So I just think all these characteristics really seem like Arthur can't be racist. He does seem a little bit dumbfounded to some of the racism thrown towards Lenny and Charles, but it doesn't seem like he really tries to act on it or do anything bad about it. So I don't know, he definitely seems like someone that's not racist. He'll kind of work with anyone as long as they help him, and just overall is a really nice person. So I think he also has to go into D tier. In 20th place, I've got Dutch van der Linde. I think pretty similar to all these other people, as long as people will work for him and work towards his goal of just kind of ruining society in general. Dutch is willing to work with anyone, no matter what race they are, no matter what color they are, as long as they help him. So I think Dutch is definitely a very anti-racist person. He wants to just destroy society and, turn it back into a place where there is no race, where there is no anything like that. And I think while he does, use some people, especially Native Americans, in both Red Dead Redemption 2 and Red Dead Redemption 1, it kind of is towards this end goal of just society being ruined and going back to this place where anyone can do whatever they want and there's no really repercussions about it. So that's what Dutch wants to do, and I don't really think there's any racist undertones of that. He just uses people towards his goal, and it doesn't matter if you're white, black, he'll still use you, and that's just how he is. So he definitely also has to go into D tier. While he does use people, he doesn't do it in like a racially biased way. In 19th place, I've got John Marston. I don't really think there's anything racist going on with John. He's friends with Charles. He does all these other things. I just think he might be a little touch more racist than like Arthur and Dutch, but I don't think he's racist at all. I just feel like there could be a little bit more undertones just like on the way he is, and especially when, at the beginning of his life where like Abigail, might have slept with Javier, might have done all this, like, he might have had a little bit more racist undertones towards them, but I don't know 100%. It doesn't really seem like there's anything in the game that, shows that. But I think John is definitely not racist, and he also has to go into D tier because he's just not a racist character. In 18th place, about Abigail Roberts, she was letting anyone in the gang hit no matter what race they were, but at the end I feel like she does kind of seclude herself away from like the city life and any diversity, which I mean isn't bad, but it just kind of takes away from all this diversity, and which could kind of be seen as racist. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Abigail's probably not a racist character. She's letting anyone in the gang hit if they're paying the price when she was a prostitute. And I feel like as a prostitute, you can't really, be racist about things because a paying customer is a paying customer. So she also has to go to D tier. I don't think she's racist at all. In 17th place, I've got Colm O'Driscoll. I don't think he's racist either. He kind of just uses people to his advantage. Anyone with a gun can join his game. It does seem like he does lean a little bit more towards white people than black people, just from like looking at his gang's diversity, or like Irish people at least. But it doesn't seem like there's any like real discrimination if you're a black person and, you were willing to join his gang. I'm assuming Colm would let you join the gang because he just does not care. He's just throwing bodies into the fire and will let anyone die. So I don't think he's racist at all. He just kind of uses people in general, and he doesn't discriminate on who he's using. So I think he's also going into D tier. In 16th place, I got Miss Grimshaw. While she does harp on Tilly more than any of these other people, I don't really think she's racist. She does do, some weird things against Tilly, and I think she and Tilly get into the most beef. She also gets into beef with Karen and Mary-Beth. I don't think she's a racist person at all, or she wouldn't be, the main person in the camp doing all this stuff. But I think there could be some deep down prejudices or something with that, just especially because she harps on Tilly more than any of these other people. But I don't think so. So I'm going to put her into C tier because she might hold some prejudices. In 15th place, I've got Sean Macguire. Sean definitely is not racist, but he just hates Scots in general. I mean, I don't know if I'd really call that any racism because he just hates them because of what they did to his people. but I feel like there still is a little bit, towards that. He definitely is prejudiced against those people and probably holds a strong dislike for them, even if they didn't do anything to actually harm him. So, he does do that to the Gray family, and while they are rich, white, and racist, there is a little bit going on there, more than just Sean being, this nice, normal guy. So I will also put him in C tier because he definitely holds some prejudices against the Scots. In 14th place, we got Leviticus Cornwall. Cornwall definitely only cares about money, but I can tell you this guy definitely hates poor people in general. And it's probably also a little bit racist, even though you can't really tell that. I mean, it just seems like he would be the type to be racist, or at least like a little bit on the other side. Like, of course, he cares about money first and foremost, and doesn't care who works for him and probably, what he's using, as long as it makes him more and more money. But of course, he probably holds a little bit of a racist view against people that aren't white just because they aren't rich and white like he is. So I definitely think he's also in C tier. I mean, you can't really prove that he's racist, but I definitely think he is the type to be a lot more racist than some of these other people. In 13th place, about Angelo Bronte. Bronte definitely is prejudiced against anyone who's not Italian. I mean, clearly he holds some Italian superiority over other people, but it doesn't seem like it matters like who else it is. Like, he's not racist towards a certain group. He's just racist towards anyone who is an Italian, because I'm assuming he assumes Italians are superior to everyone else. So, I mean, he's not really racist, but he's definitely like prejudiced against every other group besides Italians, because Italians are the only one who understands him. But it doesn't seem like he's like specifically prejudiced against a certain group. So I'll also put him in C tier. In 12th place, about Agent Milton, I definitely think he is prejudiced against certain people like Javier or Lenny, because it seems like he does have some prejudice against them because they're not white, but it doesn't seem like he's like super on that, and it's more like the stress that kind of forces it out of him. But there definitely are some microaggressions that he's hitting. Not even micro, they're just straight out words of aggression where he calls Lenny like boy and stuff, but it's not like super outwardly racist, and it's just more of like a common, white person from the city at this time, where they're definitely racist against black people. It's like they don't want them in their area, or like people of color, but they're not like super outwardly racist about them, like calling them the N-word or like any other slurs. It's just kind of like those super microaggressions just on how they talk to them and how they kind of speak down to them. So I definitely think he has to go into B tier because he's pretty racist. In 11th place, about Leopold Strauss. I definitely think Strauss is not the most, nice guy. I think he definitely looks down on poor people, especially. Maybe he doesn't look down on like all races, but he definitely looks down on poor people. And there's a reason why he's giving Arthur to, take back the money. He doesn't really like, touching all these other people. He's kind of like the dirty man, and he isn't really like interacting with anyone else besides some of these white people. So I feel like he's definitely low-key pretty racist. He just doesn't like poor people at all. I think that's more of his thing than like actually being racist towards like all races, but he definitely holds some prejudices, especially against poor people. So I think I also have to put him into B tier because there's definitely something deeper going on with him. In 10th place, about Billy Williamson. Bill is pretty much like Milton. It's just mostly words and stuff, but it seems like he's also just like less developed. Like, he just doesn't really understand how like racism works. And I think he just like likes saying the words because, he wants to feel superior over other people. So I just don't think he's smart enough to understand like really what the words mean and how they hurt other people. But he does say them all the time, and he's just like a super uneducated guy. So I think that's more of it. But I don't think he's like super racist in that sense, but he's definitely fine with like spouting racism and being a part of the system that allows racism to keep him on top. So I think that's why he has to also go into B tier. In 9th place, I've got Cleet. You can't really tell that he's racist, but just the fact that he and Joe and Micah are all friends, it probably just means he's at least a little bit racist, at least as racist as some of these other guys, like Bill, like Agent Milton. Just like, I think he talks down to all these people, and while I didn't see any specific interactions where he's talking down to these other people, he definitely does seem a little racist and at least benefits from racism. So I think he also has to go into B tier. In 8th place, I got Joe. I think Joe, pretty similarly to Cleet, is definitely racist, but I feel like just his appearance makes him seem a lot more racist because he's like super red and he's like a whole redneck look. So I think he has to go a little bit above Cleet, and just the fact that he also stayed with Micah after he like shot that little girl or whatever, seems like he's a lot more putting up with a lot of Micah's stuff and definitely allows racism to happen in the camp with Micah. So I think he has to go above Cleet, and I definitely think he's in the A tier where this guy's definitely racist. I can tell he's racist, so he has to go into A tier. In 7th place is Colonel Favours. Colonel Favours isn't like overly outwardly racist, but he definitely hates Native Americans and just will not conform to any of their things. You look at like his meeting with Rainsfall, and he's like, yeah, I'm not going to say your silly name or whatever. And he definitely is like outwardly racist, but not like where he's like, you know, saying the N-word and saying like all these other microaggressions. He just hates Native Americans, and I feel like that's his main thing. But he definitely is a racist person. So I think he also has to go into A tier, but there's nothing like super special pushing him over the top to put him above any of these other characters. In 6th place, I've got Catherine Braithwaite. Again, there's nothing like specific saying that she is racist, but she was like a plantation house. She owns a plantation house. She definitely owned slaves before and, you know, has benefited from all that. So she's definitely extremely racist, but I think just because she's an old woman and she knows what to say, she doesn't like extremely go about it where like it clearly seems like she's racist, but, you know, kind of come on. Like she's definitely racist. She benefited from that. She owned a plantation house and owned slaves, and she 1,000,000% has to be racist. And that's why it was nice to, of course, see her die and burn down the plantation house, because we're not fucking with her, messing with our boys Charles, Lenny, and Javier. So I don't know, she has to be racist, so she has to go into A tier. In 5th place, I've got Micah Bell. He's definitely more outwardly racist. He says stuff to Javier, calling him, you know, the G word, or he says stuff to Lenny and, you know, Charles. He's just racist to all of them. He doesn't want to sleep with any people of color. And just in general, he has to be one of the more racist characters. And he's just super outwardly racist about it. I mean, of course, they wanted to set him up as the bad guy, and they made him a lot more racist than, you know, maybe he should be. But, you know, you can clearly tell that he rubs off on Bill, and especially they have this white supremacy type thing going on with them. So, and of course, Micah just only hangs out with white people when he's not in the gang. So he definitely is white supremacist-y. He's not like super far in that way, but he'd rather hang out with white people and do stuff with white people than do anything with people of color. So he definitely is A tier 100%. This is a racist dude. In 4th place, I've got Leigh Gray. Leigh Gray, of course, has to be racist. He's a member of the Gray family who owned slaves back in the day. It just seems like he probably is, you know, specifically more harsh, more prejudiced towards people of color. And I think also it's always that second generation, you know, the old people that own slaves. They might not be as racist now, like Catherine Braithwaite. Like, they don't really care that much. They had slaves back in the day. But it's always that second generation, those kids that are like the most racist, because they get to espout their parents' views, and they kind of, their parents saying, oh my God, life was so much better when we had all these slaves and everything like that. And it just kind of goes down after that. So I think he's definitely one of the more racist people in the game. And even though he doesn't say anything specifically that's racist, he definitely is really racist. And, you know, he just benefits off of racism and stuff like that. Just anyone in Rhodes, in Lemoyne, you know, especially in, Rhodes, I think has to be racist. In 3rd place is Jeremiah Compson. Come on, this guy literally does not see African-American people as people. You know, he sees them as property, and that was kind of his job, to catch them and return them back to their owners. And he just hates anyone, especially like Abraham Lincoln and anyone who was part of the Emancipation Proclamation, because they ruined his job, they ruined his life, and he just wants things to go back to the way it was when he actually had a job. He was well respected and all that. And of course, he's going to hate people that ruined that, and especially the people that he used to think of and thought of as property, and now they're actually these real people. And he probably just hates them even more now because they're, you know, real people and they actually have their own rights and everything. So he definitely has to be an A tier racist. Just everything he does just clearly shows racism, and he wants things to go back to the way it was when he could actually be racist, and it was fun and like it worked for him. So he definitely has to go in A tier. I don't think he can go into S tier because these two other people are just so much more racist, and he was just, you know, a slave catcher, and he just thought of black people not as people but as property. And I feel like that really skewed his perception, especially because, you know, he eventually did lose his job because of the same thing. So I don't think he's the most racist character on here, but I definitely think he is extremely racist and, you know, deserved to die in this clip. In 2nd place, it's Herbert Moon. Herbert Moon hates Jewish people and is just very, very anti-Semitic. And I just think he's not a great guy. I mean, clearly you see, it seems like he hates anyone that isn't white. And, you know, he does like John and Arthur because they are white, and he wants them to help him with something. But, of course, they're not going to help him because they're not as racist as Herbert Moon. Herbert Moon is just a really, really bad person, and, of course, is one of the most racist people in the entire game. That's why I always like to, you know, make him at least a little scared, you know, maybe put a bullet in his head and then he dies, but then he always comes back to life, which is also another bad thing. I just hate this guy, and of course he's one of the most racist characters in the entire game, so he gets to go into S tier. In first place, it has to be Norris Forsyth. This guy's based off the funny mustache guy from Germany, and just overall in general, everything, it's like white power, white supremacy. That's the whole thing he's spouting throughout the entire game. And it doesn't seem like either Arthur or John like him. It seems like he's kind of wilting away. It doesn't seem like anyone besides some clan members actually do ever say anything about Norris Forsyth throughout the entire game. And while I would put some clan members up here, you don't really know any specific ones. And Norris Forsyth, especially because he's based off the very funny mustache guy from Germany, who's also a very, very racist person, I feel like he just has to go up here. And just in general, Norris Forsyth is one of the worst people in the entire game. And you always have to put a bullet through this guy's head whenever you see him, because no one cares. The law doesn't care. They'll see you put a bullet through this guy's head, and they don't care because they hate Norris Forsyth as much as you do. And, you know, he just really deserves it. So he has to go in the S+ tier, especially just because he's based off the funny mustache guy who's like one of the most racist people ever to ever exist. So I don't know. He just has to go up here, and he's definitely the most racist person in Red Dead Redemption 2. So that rounds out my full racism tier list in Red Dead Redemption 2. Basically, all these characters are some people that you just have to go around the map and put bullets in, especially the people in A tier and S tier. You definitely have to go around and put bullets in them. And if you are watching this video and you have Red Dead Redemption 2, please go and put a bullet in each of their heads.